first a question which is related to public management. We will give you just overview of what answers should be. Details you should read from model answer once provided. Because once we go for detailed discussion, it will take 4 to 5 hours. So I don't want to spend 4 to 5 hours. So we'll give you overview of any question, what it should have the answer. This. And it does not make sense. Already those who have studied, so they should know details, and those who are studying, they will know it later on. So it is a public management question which says that what and why. Public management takes what and why from public administration, and how from management. How is very clear that what is how. How is about? Yes? Yes, tools and techniques. Means, so tools and technique means, and those tools and techniques can be considered as, what are tools and techniques? No, in short way to tell it is, so it takes new public management. Public management is about new public management, it is obvious. So it has a theoretical root from public choice approach and neo-taylorism. Even if you do not know, but do not write, but still people will be able to identify how part that it is about tools and technique, managerial oriented, marketization, regulation, facilitation, and managerialism. The 3 characteristics that we tell. This. Now, this what and why. So, what and why is basically related to its traditional, means new public management, it is means oriented. It means how to achieve the goal it talks. But the goals may remain same. No. So the goals may remain same. It is more about how to achieve the goals. So the goals may remain same. The goals, let's say that you find 3 E's. If you remember, 3 E's, the goals were set by also Wilson. And theme of new public management also 3 E's. That way we can consider. Or if you are not able to bring in terms of goals, you can take like what public administration does. The traditional public administration is regulatory oriented. It regulates the affairs of the people. So that regulation aspect will come. Why aspect is about state or operational aspect of administration. Means when new public management says that what public administration should do, what it should not do, and how it should do. What public administration should do? Regulation. What it should not do? Business. And how it should do? Business oriented. So what it should do, what is basically related to the regulatory aspect of the state. That the role, responsibility or the goals. So NPM does not bring change in that. It remains more or less same. Y aspect of traditional public administration means the administration. It does not also replace administration. Like who should do regulation? Regulation should be done by administration. This. So why there should be business orientation? The business orientation should be for achieving efficiency. This. But why aspect of traditional public administration is related to the role of administration, its legitimacy or the sovereign function of the state. Why traditional public means what is the role of administration and why role of administration is important. The role of administration is important simply because it is the operational part of the state and state is a complex entity. So when we write about why and what and why, we should relate to the goals, the traditional goals or the 3 E's, plus we should also relate to the operational aspect of the administration. The traditional administration means new public management wanted to bring change in the tools and techniques by continuing the traditional goals of the administration, the normative values of the administration. So normative values of administration, it continued, it brought changes only in means orientation. And the means orientation were related to managerial tools and techniques. And then you should start writing about tools and techniques, elaborate them, the tools and techniques that it talks, write about the characteristics of new public management, then write about the impact of new public management, some benefits of new public management, and towards end you conclude by writing the relevance of the tools and technique, how the tools and technique still means its how aspect still remains relevant even if there is a post NPM development. For instance, the present government in India has minimum government and maximum governance. That should be the orientation of the answer. Now, why we are not writing criticism in that? Yes, the command is elaborate. So when command is elaborate, you don't have to write criticism. Even if NPM has its own criticisms, but question is not asking to write in that way. Right? And that is how let's say that this question should have been answered. Then if you take first big question, it is a simple question, anyone can answer, isn't it? So you have to write about Rensis Liquid, management system 1, 2, 3, 4, and you have to show in that, right, whatever introduction, body, etc. Then you have to show that how management system 1, so we move from management system 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. Right. So we have to go through this, you have to show this. This is the key aspect. So you don't have to simply, even if it is a simple question, but you don't have to still write just management system 1, 2, 3, 4. Rather you have to show how we move towards, because he was talking a transition, that their transition. No, management system 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is their transition. So his model of management system 1, 2, 3, 4 is not a static model. Unlike, let's say that, unlike theory X and Y. Rather it is a dynamic model that he talks that how an organization can move from 1 to 4, and when it wants to become from directive to participative, so how it will have to go through the transition known as management system 2 and 3. That is what we have to write in this question. Then interesting C question.
Sir, I have a small doubt in the second question. Sir, it is saying that every human organization shall move from 1 to 4. Sir, can't we write that not necessarily?
Not necessarily, yes.
Because it may move from 1 to 4 directly also, or an organization.
Yes. I did not focus on that aspect. Every human organization, you can say largely big and complex organizations. That you can say. largely big and complex organizations or organizations facing dynamic environment. In that situation, we need to move from 1 to 4. Otherwise, when environment is stable, in a stable environment, organization deals with routine activities, so it is not needed to move from 1 to 4. You can reinforce it by also talking about Chris Argyris. He talks about 4 types of structures: pyramid, modified, functional and matrix. The pyramid structure is relevant because it is for routine activities. So, yes, first let me structure that. You should have written any introduction. Then write about management system 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you prove this. It should be proven that how it should be. And then towards end, let's say, we can counter a bit. It is not necessary for each and every organization to move towards this, because all organizations do not need to change. Let's say if some organizations have routine activities and stable environment, so they may remain at what they are at first stage. This, so that we can say. However, their model is for dynamic organization, because they are the modern organization theorists. So when they are modern organization theorists, so they see organization and environment as a dynamic relation, and in that context consider organization itself as dynamic. So that way we can conclude. First C question. So simple quotes, and some quotes are tribunals. Yes, all tribunals are quote. Same way. So it is a simple question. Can we say? Right. But you have to mold the answer in the context of. Yes, not Indian judiciary. Administrative. Administrative law. Means, let's say administrative law rather. We have to write in that context, since still let's say that those who are aware, so they should have molded, because it is a question belonging to administrative law chapter. Once you know it is about administrative law, you should mold your answer in that way. Don't start writing GS type of answer. This, and that is how, even if it is a simple question, I will tell you that people will be writing a GS answer, not necessarily administrative court answer. Why? We will show you when time, it demands lots of time to show so many things. But it is not also necessary, but it will tell you that we kept saying in test program, again we will keep saying, test 4, 5, 6. So they have paper 1 element, basically test 4 and 5. We say ki write paper like paper 1, but people write like paper 2nd. This. So they should have, here let's say simply you should have started, right. You should start writing any introduction related to tribunals. Tribunals are considered as mixed type of, tribunals have mixed type of nature, characteristics, resembling administration and judiciary. Means tribunals are considered as semi-administrative and semi-judicial institutions. Although their style of functioning is like judicial type, but still they have administrative characteristics. That can be. Then you can write about the courts characteristics you should write. The one side you should have written courts characteristics, other side you write tribunals characteristics. And then you write how all tribunals are courts. So how all tribunals are courts? Because How all tribunals are courts? That is the key aspect of the answer. People will miss to write. Tribunals have judicial nature of functioning. Even if they have executive characteristics, but their functioning is, style of functioning is judicial. What? They function through benchage. This. So they function through benchage. Then there are two parties represented. The two parties are represented. Then their nature of functioning is judicial. Order is also judicial. This order is also binding. They have to enjoy independence like judiciary. At least half members should be judicial. So you have to write some characteristics of tribunals and show that how even if they have administrative characteristics, because the half members are considered as executive and they are not supposed to follow civil procedure code, rather they are supposed to follow natural justice, still their nature is judicial. And that's why they will be considered as courts. Hence, all tribunals will be considered as courts. This. Then you should link that the idea of tribunals are courts, so it basically it is based on dual court system. In the field of this is the time to link with administrative law. In the field of administrative law, there are two types of courts. One is considered as a regular court, and another is considered as a quasi-judicial court or administrative tribunal based on droit administrative practice in France. And that practice has still continued. No critic you don't have to write. So that practice has still continued. In any country we can find today that there are two types of courts. One is a regular court that is led by judiciary, other is tribunals, and tribunals are needed simply because the role of administrative adjudication and speedy adjudication, cost effective adjudication. So speedy, cost effectiveness, these and let's say administrative adjudication, these things have increased, and that's why let's say role and relevance of tribunals also increased. And that way you should conclude. So what do you find? Even a simple question does not let you to remain relaxed. No. Then classical organization theory. So classical organization theory you have to link classical organization theory. You have to link with modern organization theory. This. Last year they asked a question related to Henry Fayol and Taylor. It was quite predictable question. We had also asked in test, but it does not matter whether you have asked. It was obvious question. Comparison between Taylor and Henry Fayol. Now this time they have asked a classical theory question after a long time and linking to modern organization theories. What are modern organization theories? Behavioral theories, system theories. Both. Behavioral theories are also considered modern organization theory. Yes. So, how classical organization theory provides the term they are using? Bedrock for this. How it is? I'll show that. Draw karo, right? Bedrock. No. No, it's about theoretical aspect, not objectives. No.
Because even after classical theory, there were behavioral elements which were not addressed. Efficiency was not attained.
No, we should not go in that way. Let's talk about theory. If you take one or two aspects, so it will result into narrow focus. You have to prove it, how it is foundation.
Classical organization theory basically focused on achieving efficiency and effectiveness and other aspects of the organization, which also included the
No. Again, why you? I don't understand. मैं उस तरह से सोच नहीं पा रहा हूँ. But you means all people are thinking objective term. Right. Think about theoretical term. Let's take any theory. Let's say behavioral theory. Right. Let's take what we have told. Revisionist. Do you know? All behavioral theories, thinkers, first what they do? They review, or criticize, but they review traditional organization theory. And on the review, they build their theory. Right. Can we say that theory X and theory Y? Can there be theory Y without theory X? It is not possible. Then you cannot have management system 1, 2 without management system 3 and 4. Can we have this without this? It is not possible. Take Barnard. Formal and informal organization. What he says? Right, the formal organization and informal organization. He does not reject it. And he talks formal authority, formal communication. Isn't it? Then we can, yes, it is not only about system theory, you can also show system theory. System theory, so it is a system. And in that system, you can have various subsystems. And one is technical subsystem. Now, if you remember, managerial subsystem, technical subsystem, social psychological system. We have various types of subsystem. One is also this. But even if it is one subsystem, but where it does start? It starts like this. Remember what we have told, this classical theory. So, it is classical theory, human relation. Let's say human relation theory, behavioral theory, and system theory. Now, you remove this. Is it possible? So you have to adopt a macro approach in this question. You have to prove the question by theory, not by taking on some efficiency or effectiveness or something else. Otherwise, we will not prove it. Because they are also based, their aim is also efficiency. Isn't it? Means are different, ends are same. So it is not right to go for, let's say, focusing on efficiency aspect. Yes. Then it can be. Basically, you have to write that. You have to write the evolution of organization theory. How the question should be answered. So we should start writing evolution of organization theory. We should start writing evolution of organization theory. And it starts with classical organization theory. Write its characteristics. A bit of characteristics. No, it is normative, principle oriented. This deterministic, universal, it considers principle universal. That way you can say some defining characteristics you can write. After that, just start writing. Thereafter, we have experience human relation theory, behavioral theory, system theory. That's all. Then you say that how human relation theory to system theory. So you have given a brief of this. Then you have to tell that how this modern organization theory are built on classical organization theory, that you have to write. And in this part you will relate either one you write, either this should be written, this should be written, or this should be written. And you argue that even if classical theories they were criticized, rejected, but they have not completely rejected. And their theories cannot be understood without understanding classical organization theory. This. And that's why, let's say, classical organization theory also still remains relevant. This. And that is how towards the end you should have it.
So we can write that system theory consider both classical theory and behavioral theory also. And basically,
Yes,
we are delegating each other.
someone is writing a post, it is also correct, whatever you are writing, yes.
System theory consider both classical and behavioral theory and so it gives the foundation.
No, here the foundation is not, see, here it is not classical theory which is providing foundation. Basically modern organization theory, it is saying theories. See what the question is talking now. Modern organization theories. So we will start, modern organization theory is taken from behavioral theory. This you should know very clearly. It is the system theory which is known as modern organization theory. But if you mention theories, then behavioral theories are also considered modern organization theories. Why they are considered modern organization theory? Because they consider organization as a social system, part of the environment. This, because of that aspect. So, classical theory, it provides foundation for behavioral theory. And then both in turn provide foundation to system theory. So that way also you can answer. Or without going into system, focusing on system, you can simply focus on modern organization theory taken as behavioral and system theories. And they cannot be understood without understanding classical theory, because its evolution starts with classical theory.
So here you can also give example of Burns and Stopper or John Woodward if the relationship
No.
because ultimately
No. If you bring contingency theory, then it will be deviation. This, because question is simply saying that to tell how classical theory has provided a bedrock, means a foundation. How classical theory has provided foundation to modern organization theory. That is how we have to prove it. And we can say yes, because modern organization theories are built upon them, even if they are the critic, but they do not completely reject, rather they build their theory on them. This, that argument should be, right?
You can skip that human relation aspect also, means if
Yes, it is not needed. You can escape. Just I told the continuity. But we no need to, means in our analysis, in content we should not write on HRT. Right. Since organization theory has evolved with this and that way. That's why we have mentioned. But when you write in answers, so there should not be any content related to HRT. It is not needed. This. So is it clear?
So in the question it was mentioned that
Yes, sir.
modern organization theory, so we would have written only about system theory.
Yes.
So this much.
This much. Then वो question ही नहीं होता. Then the nature of question should have been something else. This is anyhow, even if let's say कि someone talks that कि only system theory, not behavioral theory, still it is correct. It will be seen कि whether you are able to prove that कि classical theory is providing a foundation. So how it is providing a foundation? That you have to prove, even if you talk only system theory. Right. Because the main aspect is not कि which theory you talk there in modern and system. Rather, we are able to prove कि it is providing a bedrock or it is a foundation. That aspect is important. Then first question. So, any introduction can be written related to civil society organization. So those who know, so we teach some introductions. Civil society organizations are considered as the buffer between, yes, buffer between state and people. That is another one. Cooperation, conflict, Amartya talks, that introduction. So they are the, let's say that, considered third sector and important stakeholder in the process of governance. So that way it can be, simple way to introduce in the context of the question is that governance, the contemporary governance paradigm recognizes the role of civil society organization, that they are considered as third stakeholder, and there is collective way of solving, or this, you draw this state, market and civil society organization. This. Then you write a bit of evolution of civil society, how civil society has evolved. No need to write a long evolution. Simply write that civil society is as old as society, but in modern times it was Hegel who talks about civil society role, and more importantly in contemporary times World Bank has highlighted in its governance report role of civil society. That is the only evolutionary thing you have to write in very brief, because it is short question. So that evolutionary aspect. Then you have to focus on, after writing this, focus on interaction between state and civil society organization. This question is now state and civil society organization. Question is saying that it is less in developing countries. You can categorize this, developed countries, and developing countries. This. So when we talk about developed countries, and let's say that we are talking developing countries, so that way we should categorize. Now, why there is more interaction, why there is less interaction? So we cannot write so much or so many things. No? So we used key terms. Right. Yes, anything, democratization we can write. They have civic culture. They have civic culture, and they will have parochial and subject culture. Right. Those who do not know, they will know, don't worry. Civic culture, because society, it is democratized. No? Society there, remember prismatic society, change, endogenous change. How endogenous change has come? Civil society also. So the Western countries have got democratized, and in there has also been role of civil society. Means Western countries have faced more friction between state and civil society, and then their rights have been recognized. Their role has been recognized. It is settled. Civil society is considered inalienable. But here, since it is a parochial culture, a subject culture, the relation remains conflictual. The nature of state is soft nature state. Use some of the terms of development administration also. Soft nature state, where you find that it is a prismatic society, imbalanced polity. The imbalanced polity means that state and civil society relation will not be the way in a democratic society. Rather, at times you find out that civil society feels threatened. There is over-regulation, or they lack freedom. State is more dominant. So the way interaction happen in Western society between state and civil society, that kind of interaction has not happened in developing countries. However, in contemporary, let's say 90s onwards, you have to focus. Then you have to talk globalization, this plus governance. Globalization and governance, this is how you should write. The globalization and governance have also influenced state and civil society interaction even in also developing countries. For instance, in our country, So you should have written this 2007. Government adopted national policy on non-governmental organization. This, and then we have a setup called this DARPAD. So in developing countries also there is increase in also interaction between state and civil society. Greater interaction happen, like say even there is a policy on non-governmental organization 2007, then there is a DARPAD portal, and nowadays government has consultation with civil society organization whenever it formulates policies and programs, policies, any decisions, so they are consulted. Like for substance, let's say that 12 5-year plan. So 12 5-year plan was prepared on the basis of consultation of civil society, means largest number of, means highest number of civil society organizations were consulted. That time by planning commission and a scenario planning, it was based on scenario planning. If you don't want to write planning commission, you write Niti Aayog. The Niti Aayog also consults civil society organizations, and it says in its report, 7 years strategy paper, it says that development should be Jan Andolan. Development should be Jan Andolan. Right. This, and that way you could have ended. Basically the main aspect why I told that is a difficult, because people will not write this one. How interface has happened. This part of the answer will be a challenge, and very less people will write this, because by the time you write mains you do not remember. Right. Yes, this. So you need certain, let's say, concrete facts also related to that. This way we can talk.
Sir, can you mention a point that in developing countries, the role of government is both welfare as well as regulatory, but in developed countries it is more
No.
So there is less requirement of civil
No. Then you are going other way around. It is not less, rather that even if they are regulatory state, their society, so civil society plays a bigger role. See, even in a developed country, the role of society is very important. So we cannot bifurcate answer the way you are talking about developmental role and non-developmental role. That is applied for bureaucracy. But civil society, if you find in Western countries, they are more active. You should know that most of the international civil society organizations are in Western countries. Most of the research indices are published by Western civil society.
Sir, I'm saying in the developing countries, the role has been neglected.
No. That context will not come. Yes.
So can we say that since in developing countries changes are from without, so civil societies are not much valued?
Yes, this is also we can say कि largely colonial society, developing society, prismatic society, colonial society. Then you got decolonized during 1940s and 50s. So in colonial time there will be less role of civil society because a colonial power. So the evolutionary role of the civil society has been very less. That we can.
In developed countries, the society is homogeneous, and developing countries is heterogeneous. So the role of civil society increases in developing countries.
No. Now again, let's see. Question is not about increase in role of civil society and let's say less role of civil society. Question is saying that interaction between state and civil society has hitherto been largely neglected. It is about interaction, state and civil society. When state and civil society interact, either they cooperate or they conflict. There are two ways. Now, when civil society will have to cooperate or conflict? When there is a presence of civil society. Western countries, they underwent democratization over centuries of time. You should say 2 centuries, 3 centuries. So when they are undergoing democratization in such a prolonged way, so there is a continuous friction or interaction between state and civil society. We, if you take in our society, we got independence and we got democratized, means democratic country, we adopted democracy. So we have not been democratized, rather we adopted. So when you adopt democracy, adopt constitution, so then interaction between people and state is not there. This you have to understand. Then their society is getting democratized on the one hand. So when it is they getting democratized, what is democratization? Democratization means recognizing also the role of civil society. Developing countries have not undergone democratization. So when they have not gone under democratization, so which kind of society they are? Feudal society, parochial society, authoritarian society, this dictatorial society. So when a society is dictatorial, authoritarian, whatever, so what it will do? It will suppress voices. So you can see how civil society members, they have been arrested. You know how protest is suppressed in Iran. You know how Arab Spring was suppressed. But Renaissance was not suppressed. This you have to understand. So it is suppression, nature of a state. So developing countries have a soft nature of a state, and those nature of a state is parochial type, feudal type, which will consider civil society as a threat for its existence, and therefore it will suppress, and that will result into weak interaction between state and civil society. When government itself says that the fourth generation of war is against civil society. So do you think there will be a trustworthy interaction between state and civil society? Right. But we will not bring that aspect. It is a short answer. Right.
Can we write about FCRA curbs and...
Yes, that is how you will find. You feel threatened. Let's say in veiled way we can say, like say regulation. The way there is a regulation is also at times it is resulting into suppression of civil society voices. Right. Because civil society is a manifestation of dissent. This you should know that. Civil society will have dissent with the state. It will not have always consensus with the state. Anyhow, to a question. Let's. That's what we have written towards end. That now there is interaction increasing under globalization and governance. So that will take care of. Right. Two-way question is about administrative law. That's why it is difficult. The question is combination of your understanding related to separation of powers concept, role of legislature or relationship between three organs of the state, delegated legislation, then administrative law, and then administrative state. This balancing all the four would be very difficult. And that way you can imagine that what they are asking, what UPSC is trying to think. Anyhow, they have done for administrative law. Means it is the fourth time they have asked a very difficult question related to administrative law. This, it means it is a trend, this you can see. Once they ask red light and green light, if you read past your papers, right, it's better to leave it for traffic, don't read that. So, because once it is asked, then there it will not be asked. Basically, it was on the practice of South Africa. There is red light, green light concept in South Africa. And from there, this administrative law was, the question has taken the root. Anyhow, so let's take how it can be answered. So try to understand that. First, society experience administration, then constitution, legislature, and the idea of separation of powers. Any society has experienced growth of administration. No doubt it will have also growth of law and legislature, but not in modern terms. Like say, let's take India. The India has administrative development. Administration grew during British time. So whatever the administrative setup we have, administrative structure, machineries, rules, all were developed during British time. But there was no constitution. There was no legislature. Legislature was only introduced during 1920s. This. So already we had administrative development. And then there was legislative development and constitutional development. When legislative and constitutional development has happened, so then it has brought the concept of separation of powers. That there should be separation of powers, and the role of legislature is to make law, role of executive is to execute law, and the role of judiciary is to adjudicate law. It means that all the laws should be made by legislature, and executive is to only execute, and judiciary is to adjudicate. And if it happens in this fashion, that there will be separation of power, and it is a concept of representative democracy, in which democracy will dominate and liberty of people will be protected rather than administration. But does it happen? It does not happen. Rather, it is the administration which makes law, execute law, adjudicate. Right? Isn't it? And why it does so? Because of this or that behest, security threat, एक law बन जाएगा. One institution will be created. Lockdown, 5,000 times rules were framed. Lockdown time, we had one article on in let's say 5,000 rules were framed. Rules, sub-rules, clauses, sub-clauses by union and state combined 5,000. This. Now, how many rules will be reviewed by legislature? How many rules will be reviewed by judiciary? Not all rules will be reviewed by judiciary. It means that some arbitrary rules, laws will never be, let's say that is scrutinized by judiciary. And that way administration becomes law unto itself. Right. That is what the question is asking. Right. This question demand is in this way. Then what should be done? The second part of the question is that discuss the constitutionality of administrative state and its future. Yes. Now constitutionalism means constitutionality and constitutionalism से भी linked है, but constitutionality we'll talk here. So then it brings, let's say that whether administrative state is constitutional. This. So it is not constitutional. because many of the rules which are framed would not have scrutiny, and they are arbitrary, and when they are arbitrary they do not have scrutiny, so it is not constitutional. Constitutional means the rules should conform to the constitutional standards. And constitutional standard one is that the legislature should frame the law and executives should execute the law. This. Hence, administrative state poses constitutionality challenge. This. Then what should be done? Should be brought under constitutionality. That is what the question has to be answered. So, basically the question demands that when we have such type of questions where a statement is given, so we generally say that you should first write about a statement. Once you write about a statement, then the second part is about constitutionality. And then future. Future. Now, let's say that people will not know this way, the way we are saying. Rather, what people will know? People know about Dwight value and administrative state. So what people will do is that they will write about, if they attempt this question. If they attempt this question, they will write about this Dwight value in his administrative state talks about a Leviathan state, a welfare state, and administrative state is a state which is a big state. This, so they will basically write about big state, and they will bypass the statement the way they have the habit of bypassing statement. And after that they will write constitutionality, they will be able to relate. Big state is a threat to constitutionality because administrative law is considered necessary evil. At least itna common sense hoga, the candidate will be able to link with administrative law. So administrative law itself is considered as threat, malfeasance, misfeasance, overfeasance. Right? Means they know some rules of the game. Right? Some candidates, they know the rules of the game, they will try to apply those rules of the game. Yes, it is a threat, and then what they will say? There should be supervision, there should be judicial scrutiny, there should be, let's say, protection and delegated legislation. So to some extent, those who do not know, they would also be able to write, if they attempt at all, on the basis of Dwight value knowledge, on the basis of administrative law knowledge. That is how they will do that. Right. And that is how you should try. Thereafter, what we will tell you that you are not going to try, because again it will not be asked. Even if you know the exact answer of this question, it is not going to help anything. The only thing is that it will enhance your understanding. Your knowledge will improve about that. Yes, a question can be also combination of so many things like in administrative law. So basically, when we write about administrative state, let me tell that administrative state is not only linked to Dwight value. He was not first to talk about administrative state. Right. Yes, Thomas Hobbes can be also incorporated. Leviathan concept, yes, he can be. You should know that Tocqueville was the person who talks about administrative state. Wilson name also comes when we talk about administrative state, because he in his study of administration talks about administration. Right. To run government efficiently, he focuses on administration. And this administration, when you focus, so it aid in administrative state. It will make state more powerful. It will make administration more powerful. So it is not only Dwight value, but Tocqueville, Woodrow Wilson, their names are also taken when we talk about administrative state. Now, what is administrative state? Administrative state is considered as combination of all the state machineries, laws and rules which are needed for execution of the decisions of the executive. So all the machineries, laws, rules together constitute administrative state, which are essential for the executive to deliver. This is how you will find it if you want to define administrative state. Now then you can take that administrative state, even suppose Dwight Waldo, you can write, he wrote the book Administrative State. Then thereafter it is saying that administrative state is the creation of a power to bind us, means ki rule, and with rules that are not made by legislature. So then you should write thereafter that the rules, right, institutions and rules are not created and made by legislature. Rather it is made by executive. Now you can write some of the rules and some of the institutions which are created by executive. So there are several such rules which are framed by executive. Let's say conduct rules are themselves framed by executive. Then laws are passed, and for laws rules are framed. Right. The rules are framed, it is by executive. Delegated legislation you can write, that aspect. Then traffic rules you can take, environmental regulation you can take, right, pollution regulation you can talk, graded action plan, that regulation, media, social media, intermediary regulation. So basically you have to write those rules which have been framed by executive, not legislature. So those things should be written. After writing this, then you have to see the constitutionality. Then you have to write here constitutionality means the modern constitutionalism you have to write. The modern constitutionalism idea is based on limited government, and that limited government should have separation of powers. And separation of power means it is the legislature which should make law, executive to execute, and judiciary to adjudicate. Then you should come on the constitutionality of this. Since rules are framed by executive, that goes against the idea of constitutionalism. Because constitutionalism or constitutionality idea is based on separation of power. And hence those rules which are framed by the executive may not necessarily be considered constitutionally valid. And you can give some examples where judiciary has termed such some rules as unconstitutional. No. Let's take single directive 1969. You are a public administration student. So you should know single directive was issued by 1969 that the prosecution, investigation against civil servants should not take place unless permission is granted. And it is an executive order. But Constitution considers everyone equal. Everyone is equal. Then Vineet Narayan case comes, and then Subramaniam Swamy case comes. Right. Ultimately in Subramaniam Swamy case, what Supreme Court says? There is right to equality. And when there is a right to equality, so a civil servant should not be given privilege in terms of investigation and prosecution. Anyhow, means you needed at least 1 to such examples. No need to talk any such where judiciary has declared it null and void. There are several such executive acts which have been declared by judiciary as null and void or arbitrary. This, and that way we can link when we are writing. Then we should talk about the future aspect. The future aspect, then the way you recognize the role of administrative law. The administrative law is considered as necessary evil. Means administrative state, means administrative machineries, rules, regulations are needed for efficient functioning of the state. Like you can simply take that social media intermediary regulation is needed. Because social media is to be regulated. So we need rules and regulations. But what are arbitrariness in that? Executive power should not be exercised without checks and balances. Right. So we should avoid checks and balances. And what are those checks and balances? They use 3 terms: malfeasance, misfeasance, and overfeasance. this, which will become familiar if some of not familiar, this, and how it can be done. Then let's say that there should be greater democratization in rules making, participation, greater democratization. Second is called greater transparency in rules formulation. So transparency, then judicial oversight on delegated legislation, then legislative control on the delegated legislation, and we also talk, let's say, legislative impact assessment. There should also be legislative impact assessment. Means when there is greater participation of people in the process of formulation of rules and laws, and there is transparency, that will exercise checks and balances and will address the arbitrariness of administrative state. And that is what you have to conclude on this. Read from model answer. Right. Further, it is a complex question. It should not be a complex question, but हमारे देश में सब कुछ development होता नहीं है. Basically, it's a debate in US Constitution. US Constitution. This question has been taken from debate in US, not in India. Right.
So when we say there should be greater democratization in rule forming, so what more can we do in that regard?
Let's take civil society participation. There should be greater civil society participation. Let's say that it's consultation process, think tank, you have independent research institutions, independent think tank institutions, that aspect. So means greater participation of people means don't think only people. It's about the different stakeholders of the society. When they have a say, greater say in that result into democratization, and different views will be incorporated. One say called as pre-legislative scrutiny. No, you are aware at least.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So, but these things do happen, no?
No, they do not happen very systematically. They don't happen. You know, in the end of the article, what has been written? The article I have read for discussing this question. I read 4 or 5 articles related to US. Last में ये line लिखा है उसमें. Even if administrative state, which is so powerful, can formulate so many rules and laws, but it cannot guarantee one thing: to run train on time. This is how it is. So, to run train on time, right? Basically, you can see that they grab powers, so many powers they take. You as a, let's say that you as a railway passenger, you don't have rights. No. So many things have been brought, rules, etc., but you don't have rights. So, state becomes very powerful an institution. So when rules are framed, even social media intermediary guideline, do you think social media intermediary guideline, when it was formulated, lots of consultations have happened? Rather, when it was published, then you knew. Many a time some of the rules, etc., let's say demonetization decision was taken, how much difficulties citizens faced, and why there was so much secrecy behind that? So that is how we can say. So there should be more, what we can say, a systematic way of formulation of rules and imposition. Many a time section 144 is imposed, you know that. Why is Supreme Court frame a guideline on section 144? And still that guideline will not be followed. Isn't it? So that way you should know that it becomes arbitrary. So there are so many, let's say that rules, etc., you formulate, and those rules are formulated, after some time they are nullified because they are arbitrary. So why not executive at the first stage itself ensures that there is rule of law? Or whether executive is so precarious, Right, but we will not go into that debate. Already lots of time we are taking, so let's take 2B question. So 2B question, I guess you can answer yourself. No. Right. The right introduction related to transformational leadership. Write its characteristics, 4 I's. And then you relate with the 3 terms. This, it should be related to the 3 terms written: coordination, communication, and cooperation. So make it 2 terms: right. Communication and coordination, cooperation. Then relate with any example. Relate any examples that. So, since question is talking about explain, so no need to take pain, isn't it? Right. So why to criticize? Right? It is explained, so simply explain it. Right? Basically, let's say that since it is entrepreneurial quality, it's idealized, you'll find that idealized consideration, intellectual stimulation, the individualized consideration. So if it has those characteristics, it means that the leader is transformational. When leader is transformational, so merely leader being transformational will not bring transformation. Rather, leader will have to convert his transformational leader characteristics among followers also. And those characteristics will demand this. It will demand communication, because communication is the way to have transactional influence. And greater cooperation and coordination, team efforts, cooperation, team efforts needed. Because transformational leadership is not banyan tree type, one-upmanship. It's more about team-oriented, group efforts, participative efforts. Here you can link with Chester Barnard. Communication, because all the 3 elements he has in his theory, and functions of executive he talks. And that functions of executives also, it is a leadership quality. So we can also link that how communication, leader 1, what was important aspect of leader function? To establish a system of communication. First there should be a system of communication. Then there should be cooperation and coordination. Right. Then you can link even present Prime Minister, what he has done after Prime Minister. First is communication. Communicating with people, different segments of society, including bureaucrats. This, how transformation will come. So the leader tries to communicate with various sections of society, and then leader tries to influence them, and that influence results into bringing change in behavior. And we can see that how India's, let's say that performance in some of the areas, you will find that where traditionally we were considered weak or we were considered ineffective, how we have started making change. One is called National Innovation Index, how it has improved. If you want, means at least one applied, let's say we want to write here, or suppose you want to write any organizational example, corporate sector example, you can give transformational leader example, it can be Narayan Murthy, how influencing. So Narayan Murthy, J.R.D. Tata, that name you can write. So that way it should have been written. Means after writing here you have to spend your time. Basically you have to work on this part. People will have a very smooth passage on this part. First part. The second part demand articulation. This. And that is how towards end you should write. That's why transformational leadership is a contemporary leadership. Then 2C question. So human relation, any introduction can be written related to human relation, any introduction. Then write basics of human relation. And then write about question. Basically, third paragraph starts with question. This you should know that. That is the structuring style. Now we have to write about the statement. What is statement is talking? It is talking about relationship. Human relation is postulate what is important to a worker and what influences productivity level may not be organizational chart but his or her association with other workers. Right. What it is trying to say? Yes, informal organization, or you can say that the fourth experiment proved that workers had their own code of conduct and they did not follow the one best way of the management. Yes. So basically then you have to write that specific way you can write, or either you link with informal organization. Right. Social group, social man. Either social group, the girls behave as a social group. And when girls behave as a social group, that social group has a phenomenon, group phenomenon. And that influences their behavior rather than the formal aspect of the organization. And what was that for, let's say their behavior? Even if all the changes were withdrawn, but still they kept working. They kept working. Why they kept working? Group dynamics. This aspect. That is what we have to link. That is the key factor in this question. If a candidate is able to link with the experiments, anyone, whether it is a mass interview, also there was social influence, or let's say that any bank relay experiment, there also they kept working. Social group, that is how Mayo found how their attitude had undergone change. Or the last experiment also proved that they had four code of conduct, their own code of conduct. So since workers had their own code of conduct, it means they had informal code of conduct, means they were influenced by themselves rather than necessarily being influenced by the managerial charts. That is what we have to write about the statement. And then you can write, therefore on the basis of that, that's why human relation theory heralded a new era, isn't it? Those all blah blah things, right? With some, let's say that defining characteristics of human relation, informal organization, social man concept, the individual motivation, morale, communication, these things play more important role than economic man. Then you should write some basic here findings, the findings of the experiment. This after that, then you have to write that relevance. You have to write relevance. Is it more relevant today? This is what question is talking. So we will not directly write today. First we write yesterday, then today. Right. To establish a link, isn't it? इसलिए कि today में थोड़ा कमी भी है तो yesterday है. Balancing act, right. So yesterday you know better means you know its relevance. Human relation theory resulted into a shift, a paradigm shift in organization theory. So far the focus was only on physical aspect of organization, but now focus started on behavioral aspect of organization. Hence it gave rise to behavioral theory, human resource management, human resource development, organization behavior, neo-human relationist. And that is how public administration started incorporating behavioral dynamics, that in public administration, even in personnel are considered as human resource, human capital rather than physical entity. Then today it is also relevant. So you have lots of examples to write today. attrition, mass resignation, Winston protest, right? So you can write, and all these things are act of exploitation. You can find how in organization still there is act of exploitation. There is less social phenomenon, less emphasis on informal organization, less emphasis on communication, outlet, participation. Still there is more focus on formal aspect of organization. In fact, human remains a complex entity, means human is an organism and that human is a complex entity, and organizations will have to still understand the behavior of human and incorporate fully the characteristics of human and behavioral theories, and that's why it still remains relevant. So that is what you have to write.
Until the end, it is also saying that it is relevant but not necessary, not sufficient in fact, because ultimately for the volatility and organization, in fact, structural aspects should also be taken into consideration.
Yes, that can be taken. Means we can, if you want to mention a bit of a structural aspect, so that can be written. But since question itself we have talked in the first part, it is not managerial chart. The managerial chart means it heralded a new beginning. So it is in continuity. Still in conclusion, yes, we can balance also by writing that although it rejects the idea of managerial chart means formal organization, but formal organization is also relevant. At the same time, organizations are more inclined towards incorporation of behavioral aspects.
And sir, when we talked about humanitarianist or the presence and why the association of workers is necessary, can we also write a little bit line about Mary Parker Follett also, because
No. She is a transition further between classical to HRT. She comes between classical and HRT. And this is focus on workers. This, and it is mentioned. The question itself mentioned. Human relationist. This. So now you will say कि Mayo के बाद और कौन है human relationist? There were 3 other persons. Right. So that Roethlisberger, Dixon, and George Pennock. Right. Anyhow, let's take. We have to do lots of things.
Is a counter argument necessary? Like, वो नहीं होना चाहिए.
क्या? Relevance.
Like counter argument about the relevance. Is it necessary to have a counter argument?
No. When the question is asking, is it relevant? So you have to write affirmative. This. You don't have to write other side.
Sir, there is no doubt that it is relevant in the present context, but is it more relevant in the present context than in the past? We have to prove that.
It is more relevant. It is more relevant because you know that how the organizations are facing challenges. Right. This. Second, that if you want to write, even if you write relevance, it will suffice. No need to give this emphasis. Even if you want to give, so basically it is more relevant simply because you will find that organizations, during that time its relevance was not realized. Its relevance has been realized now. Like you have seen technological, now unnecessarily it will result into extra addition in, let's say that. But let's say that society has experienced everything till today. But the most important aspect which we are not able to change is called attitude and behavior. Technology is also changed. Right. We have brought other reforms, but behavior is not changing. It means changing behavior is most difficult and challenging. That's why it becomes more relevant. 3A. So basic introduction, right? Zone of indifference also, right? Now, a good candidate will also write about the 4 factors, the 4 conditions which result into acceptance of authority. 4 or 5? 4. So intelligibility, compatibility, consistency and feasibility. Those conditions should also be written. And this acceptance of authority, you have to link with what it is talking about. This question talking authority relationship and cooperation in modern organization. So, zone of indifference results into acceptance of authority, and this results into cooperation. Yes, cooperation. How cooperation can be improved by greater this zone of indifference or acceptance. That will be, let's say, you can link. In fact, it is this question answer which you can write most theoretically correct. This 3A question. So, because it is very clear, then the examine part is also clear. Authority does not only depend on acceptance, formal authority is also needed. No, because authority based on acceptance may result into chaos. Right. Hence, can be more relevant in a dynamic organization, middle and higher level of organization dealing with more dynamic subject matter. But if an organization is dealing more with administrative nature, emergency time, during that time we need a clear command structure. This criticism is also, let's say that examining part is also relevant. But then you have to conclude by relevance of this. Yes, even if it has limitation that it cannot be applied especially in public administration. However, organizations today, they have to work more as cumulative. There should be more cumulative efforts, there should be more power with concept, there should be more network governance. In that scenario, acceptance of authority will enhance effectiveness of leadership, effectiveness of decision making. And that's why Barnard concept remains relevant. And that is how you should write its conclusion. Then distinctive, important, meaningful. Because of this, it becomes a bit difficult. How you will write it? See, so yes, NPS, you should write about NPS as a post-NPM model. Then you should write characteristics. NPM is known for its 7 principles. Even if you do not remember 7 principles, NPM is known for bringing change in values of public administration. Like NPA, it once again redefined the philosophical foundation of public administration from management science to political theory or political science. So public administration role should not be to steer rather than to serve. This. Public administration role is to serve people rather than merely steer people. The steering is more about, let's keep facilitating. But people do not need facilitating many a time. People need service. People need empowerment, not merely facilitation. This. So let's say that COVID time, COVID vaccination, you cannot have facilitation role. You cannot, let's say that tell people to go, vaccine is available in hospital, this is the transportation, you can go. Right. Rather you have to own the responsibility, ownership. The state has to own the responsibility. This is what we can say. So, yes, means this you have to explain, then you have to tell how it is distinctive, important and meaningful. It is distinctive because it is different from even traditional public administration, new public administration and new public management. How? I will tell shortly. Important because we have realized after NPM that how public values are important. Right. How market has its own limitations. This, and then meaningful because it makes society better. Right. It aims at making society better. Let's public service motive. This, how it is distinctive. So it is democratic in nature. It imbibes democratic principles. And not only, let's say, democratic principle like the way NPA talks. Right. New public service also incorporates tools of new public management. It does not, let's say, that he completely reject. Right.
Redefine the role of new public management.
Yes. NPS. Basically, it tries to, NPM was trying to philosophize itself that it is end in itself. Right. Seeing the state as business perspective and doing business, performance, they have become very important. Still you can know that. Today performance is given more preference, growth is given more preference. This will find growth, development. But these things should work as means. The ultimate aspect of society should be whether society is by the end of the day, it is better, satisfied or not. Rather than whether society has gone to Mars. Right. By end of the day, it is about satisfaction. It is about values. That's why it says that value people, not productivity. And value citizenship, not entrepreneurship. So that's why it carries distinctive characteristics. In fact, new public service is considered as the most coherent model in contemporary times for 21st century, formulated by Denhart and Denhart. That is what towards end you have to write. And that's what, then you can give some examples how today there is greater emphasis on not only, let's say, productivity, but also about satisfaction. How we can relate सबका साथ, सबका विकास. पहले इतना आया था. Right. The government brought सबका साथ and सबका. You can write in 3 stages ना, तब तो पता चलेगा कि हाँ NPS आ रहा है. तो सबका साथ सबका विकास, growth model. Then सबका विश्वास, right, this, and सबका प्रयास, this, the trust and democratization efforts of all, that can be considered NPS. So we need NPM, but right, सबका साथ सबका विकास, government focuses on growth, right, but Growth is not enough. We have to build trust with people. Right. And then democratization. It's not only market, it's not only state, it's also people. This. So that's what, let's say, NPS will emphasize, that a collaborative, democratic efforts, right, to achieve efficiency as well as, right, propagate the traditional values of democracy or society, where citizens and collective goods would be created. Means we will create public good rather than only good for one and two individuals. So it demands a bit of, let's say, that articulation when you write your answers. Let's take 3C. Strategic communication. So we will tell that you should start with communication. So you should start with communication. Write the basics of communication. Yes. Yes, that is one. That is the only trick available.
Strategic leadership पे आता है, strategic
Right. Yes. Means people, if they had, that is called application of mind. So there is strategic decision making, and strategic decision making, and he also talks on communication. That's why I told that towards end you can manipulate.
So you made us write that the strategic communication in the dictation of just a one. Communication or strategic communication.
So basics you can write of communication, Shannon and Weber model, that we write. No, that can be written. Write a bit of significance. Write a bit of significance. Then start writing on strategic communication. ICT. Suppose you do not know about strategic communication. You can link with ICT, how ICT has resulted into change in communication revolution. That can be written. This. So significance, this can be written. Then you can link with Chester, Barnard. Strategic decision making. This way, strategic decision making, strategic communication, that way you can interchangeably use. This, that's why I told you this question could have been attempted, because you have something concrete to write. You can see that some questions demand lots of efforts to articulate. I mean, you have to apply your power of expression. Right. And power of expression, it is very challenging. But where you have direct content, you can write it. Power of expression is not needed. This. So that way, and then you can conclude. This. Conclude without writing exactly what is strategic communication. Right. Anyhow, we asked a question related to communication and ICT in our mock test last for CSE 2022. You know what people did? Most of the people were writing GS paper second. E-governance in the name of ICT. Question is ICT and communication, they are writing e-governance. In most of the, since mock copy I checked, I wrote, you are writing e-governance, not communication. This. Anyhow, let's come what is basically strategic communication. So, right. Strategic communication idea has been given by Sayana. Right. Share. Now I'm fitting this. It is something like Ben Lin. In model answer, you check it, the name will give it. See, strategic communication means communicating exactly what you want, rather than having just a general communication. Are we exactly communicate what we want? Right. Are we exactly communicating what matters most? Right. That is called master plan and agenda in organizational language. The strategic communication means the organization should communicate its agenda and master plan. Right. It is about pushing and delivering, the term they use in strategic planning. This. So, strategic. What it is strategic? So, we told in some of the things we were telling that this is important, people will miss it. Right. So, that is strategic. Strategic means a deciding factor, a critical factor. Right. So, let's take that, suppose you go to doctor, right, and you start talking about, he asks, okay, tell about your problem. So you may have heard, let's say, some people start their problem, right, and by the time they come on main problem, right, they forget, right. And it comes in their mind once they come, let's say that outside. Right. I have personal experience, but I cannot share. Right. Basically, in our family, I have personal experience. I keep saying to the people, those who they do not communicate the main thing. Right. They will communicate. They will not. Rather, they will start. Right. Okay, I went there, or this problem started. Right. This way back, 4 years back, this is all fine. I went to this doctor, I went to that doctor, I took that medicine, this medicine. Abhi jo problem hai, main problem. Right? That is what is strategic communication. Right? So in organization, let's say organizations deal with various aspects of their clients, their products, the people. So whether they are communicating exactly the things they want to, and this has increased because of changes in society, including information and communication technology, that the communication of organization has improved. Organizations have, let's say that, increased their effectiveness of communication by using various tools and techniques, including Facebook, Google, Twitter, etc. This is how you'll find it. Means the platforms it is being told. So it has basically 3 characteristics. First, using different methods and tools for communication. Nowadays, let's say mail, chat, portal, etc. Which government use, COVID time, what is strategic communication? The COVID time strategic communication is that you have to tell to people what is social distancing. No. How we started communicating? So, strategic, what was 2 गज की दूरी, क्या था वो? Right. So, 2 गज की दूरी, mask है जरूरी. That is strategic. Because it exactly communicates without jargonizing. Right. Without jargonizing that mask is important and distance is also important. Right. So that way you can consider that we used various types of tools, new methods to communicate effectively. Second is that it demands, strategic communication demands greater level of coordination and consistency. Why coordination and consistency? Because there are different tools, and if at different tools communication is not consistent, people will easily identify it. Right. because they have also information available. Anything you Google it and you know yourself. So that's why they are saying that there should be greater level of consistency, coordination and professionalism in communication. These are the three characteristics given by this thinker for strategic communication. Strategic communication, if you relate with other aspects, it is also being nowadays in defense sector, security, IR relationships. So strategic communication, articles have also been written. I was trying to see some of the things. One, let's say, defense officer has written that the government of India also should create a strategic communication authority.
Can you say that strategic communication is right time, right place by quoting Mary Parker Follett, as she said that grievance redressal at the right time, right place.
No, Mary Parker Follett does not talk of communication, so we should not refer it.
The right time, right place communication should be grievance redressal, dispute and resolution.
Not aware.
Sir, learning from our past experiences of miscommunication, we have created the post of Chief of Defence Staff.
No, that is not the point. It is not about grievance redressal. Can be referred, but Mary Parker Follett is not an important contributor for communication. This I am deliberately also saying because people write. I'll tell you that people do not write Barnard, but they will write necessarily some other thinkers. But Barnard is the most important contributor. But here it is about strategic communication. Why military defense, etc. I want. No? Today you have a warfare. And today warfare is also psychological warfare. Right. It's also about image building. It's also about brand building. Right. Then the defense sector, international relation, or the government, they want to, let's say, communicate very effectively. Right. Like say, suppose you want to communicate something to US. Are you exactly communicating what you want? So I guess our foreign minister, right, he knows about strategic communication. Right. So you know how he communicates. So that is what we can consider more effective way. So it is becoming relevant in today's society because of developments including globalization and let's say information and communication technology. That is how in the end you should write of this answer, and that way you should end it. This. Further you see details in model answer, right? Leadership. Yes, yes.
How this strategic communication is different from traditional communication?
Just repeat again.
Sir, I was asking, sir, how strategic communication is different from traditional communication? Like you gave example of.
Yes, traditional communication is basically it's let's say that in linear manner. Traditional communication happens in a linear manner. First, traditional communication gives emphasis on communication per se, right? Not the main thing that you want to communicate. It talks about communication in general. It can be, let's say that a letter, it can be a message, it can be, let's say that a piece of paper, it can be a report, it can be, let's say a messenger taking the message. So it's a communication that we say, general communication. Although their goal was also, the Shannon and Weber, their goal was also to ensure that the source and receiver, so the sender and the receiver, so receiver is able to exactly get the same communication sent by the sender. This. But since there is a process, long run process, so then it is noise and interference. Now when we talk strategic communication, so you have got new tools and techniques. Let's say that कि आपको 2 गज है जरूरी and mask है जरूरी. How you will communicate, suppose there is no ICT tools and technique? If we do not have ICT tools and techniques, it will not reach out to masses, isn't it? Because masses will see through various platforms. Either you have to write on the walls, this. So, but when you use the tools of ICT, it results into reaching out to the people. So it is because of that, we can say, because of channels, because of technology, and then you want to communicate the main aspect rather than the entire message. Because of that, we can consider it as different.
Right.
Then leadership, 4A question. Any introduction? Then write leader, write administrative. You write the features that we write, basically equating administratorship with managership. But then you add one more thing, because there is a difference between manager and administrator. Right. There is also difference between manager and he will face complex environment, coping with complexity. We have told how. In fact, we started with Wilson itself, administration faces complex environment. Right. So, person who is, let's say, IIM graduate, and a person who is IAS, there is difference, because manager has a limited complex environment, because business environment is not as complex, but administrative environment is more complex. The ecology you can find. So basically it will have to deal with the complexity. This varieties of clients you have, rich, poor, educated, uneducated, backward, all sort of people, and administration has to address their problems. But a manager may, let's say, cater to only homogeneous type of client. I guess that should have been written. We should also write on this aspect to show a bit of administratorship orientation, and then in this context discuss the contextuality of leadership and administration for the success of organization. Contextuality is that then you have to see, contextuality means you have to take example how a leader is successful in corporate organization, how administrator is successful in a complex environment. So basically you have to further build on this. So let's say a leader in corporate sector, he can become successful because his performance can be assessed as environment is less complex. This, and then in this, if the leader has whatever the styles we can say, be it transactional style, transformational style, so leader can easily influence the followers or subordinates, because it has defined subordinates and followers. But then we can give an example of administrator, how administrator, let's say that a district magistrate, the district magistrate faces diverse type of people. So the administrative leadership will get success only when the administrator is able to deal these varieties of people, and hence the administrator needs different type of quality. The quality will also include not only transformational, transactional, but also command and control, ability to command, ability to control, let's say your subordinates, ability to ensure that your orders are executed. So administrative leadership success in organization will demand different traits, and leadership quality in corporate sector will have different traits. Although in general both are considered as entrepreneur, means it is difficult to demarcate a line between leader and administrator, But a leader has to function in a more confined environment, and the objective is also more tangible. An administrator has to function in a complex environment, and objective is intangible. Because objectives are more subjective. For administrators, it's about service orientation, it's about satisfaction, ease of living. An administrator has to bring ease of living. Or we were talking there just in one question, ki how administrator, means in one question we were talking about that subjectivity aspect. So, since administration faces different environment, that is how their, let's say, success will depend on the context. That whether they are able to effectively tackle their situations. Like we can give some examples of good administrators, how some administrators are IAS or civil servants. You can give examples of some, let's say, some young officers you can give, how they have shown their leadership, and that leadership is more on the basis of service motive. And in corporate sector also you can give some examples this way. And that is how, let's say, that you can write about this. Yes, yes. Administrative leadership, like, yes, we can talk, as we told that we should talk the differences, but then we can also draw like this leadership, administratorship, and this administrative leadership. Like, let's say transformational, administrator can also have transformational leadership. Transformation, let's say several, let's say you can talk Operation Sulaimani, hunger-free district, or you can talk about Jitendra Kumar Soni story that we are talking in Rajasthan Nagaur district, how that district has been, means all schools have now power supply that, or let's say you can talk about that model. We were talking about Iqbal Singh Chahal, Mumbai model. So a leader will also have transformational role. Right? Or some administrators are also charismatic, they are very influential because of their personality. But at the same time, they are different because they have to have command and control. This, because it is a bureaucratic leadership. This, so that is how towards the end we should talk on this. Right? Then regulatory governance. basically these are some overview that how you should have written. Since it is related to regulatory governance, you can simply start with 90s onwards, ki how regulation has become, means state 90s onwards has came to be characterized by a regulatory state. This, and that is how 90s onwards, due to globalization, governance paradigm, marketization, the state is doing away with its welfare role, its business role, and it is focusing more and more on regulatory role. And in that regulation, a network of relationship has been created. Means now the regulation has got a process role. It has become more as a process. It has become more as a phenomenon rather than just an activity. And hence it has given rise to call regulatory governance, because governance is a process. So regulation also has become a process, a phenomenon, and that is led by, let's say, that it demands. So this regulatory governance led by institutions, it has broadly three aspects: institutions, policies, rules, and stakeholders. And those can be, this is how some of the names we have written to give in terms of India. It's like IBC, GST, and social media intermediary rules 2021, that regulation that we have, Companies Act 2013 that we have. These are the new, let's say, that key rules, regulations, they are basically, if you talk present regulatory environment in our country, so they have prominently shaped our present regulatory environment. This, and these things are, let's say, that this impact, we can say that it's the demand and hopes. On that we have to focus. What are demands and hopes? The demands and hopes are that this regulatory governance, end result of regulation is quality of product and service. If you remember what we say. How we identify that a state has better regulation? So we identify on the basis of whether the state has good product and service. This. So hopes and demands are also linked to that. What people want? Better quality of service, product, cost effectiveness, hassle-free life, this seamless service, that is how we say. Ease of living, we can say. So that way you should link. Let's say transportation, ease of doing business. The ease of doing business, transportation, our education. So you can link with these things while writing hopes and demands of people. And these things are aimed at creating, let's say, that these changes will create competitiveness, institutional pluralism, competitiveness, let's say simple but adequate rules and regulations, less regulation but effective regulation. So basically you have to construct your answer. Construct means content is not defined. It depends on how you write and link this, and that is how you should have write on this aspect. Then let me finish. Then thereafter you should write it that even if regulatory governance is there, after writing this, then you should further write it how there is scope for improvement in regulatory governance. How regulation, and there when you should write scope for improvement. So when you should write for scope for improvement, so here you have the opportunity to write a bit of evolutionary aspect. How we had welfare state, then regulatory state, and then re-regulation. So today there is greater focus on re-regulation. Re-regulation, whole of the government approach in regulation. And that way you should try to end. Yes. Yes, wherever you have governance term, no? The governance term it encompassing term. Then you have to focus on means that components, institutional aspect, legal aspect, stakeholders. That is how it will give rise to a process.
Sir, whenever process and phenomena word is used in phenomena, it is more impactful.
Phenomena it is?
More impactful, forceful.
Yes, it is a process. Yes, it is virtual process. We can feel it, but we cannot see it. There is a process, that is how. So any phenomenon, let's say globalization is a phenomenon. Can we see that? So governance is a phenomenon, but can we see that? Difficult to see that. It becomes, that is how the process results. Process itself gives rise to phenomenon. Okay. Then social audit, people will answer let's say, I will not answer this much. Force is anything related to social audit, you write. Then basics. Its basics should be written. Then you write that how social audit is not only for money, it is for positive impact on governance. So it is not only for money. It is not only for money because its aim is not quantitative, since quantitative. It is not output oriented, rather it is outcome, impact. That is how it is different from, that is how social audit is different from CAG audit, statutory audit. That is how we consider it as different from statutory audit. Right. Then we need some good examples. So some good examples how it also brings positive impact. The positive impact is, let's say, Manrega and social audit. How Manrega and social audit, and then it has influenced the effectiveness of implementation of Manrega. In fact, social audit has become now a part and parcel of governance, decentralized governance, that it has been institutionalized. Meghalaya has a legal and institutional framework, and Andhra Pradesh has this Society for Social Audit, Accountability and Transparency. And then there is a hand-holding approach by CAG and social audit. Therefore, social audit has become itself a phenomenon. It is not quantitative. That's why CAG is supposed to have a hand-holding approach with social audit, and it should also bring change in its own auditing objective, that it should become more outcome-oriented rather than only performance-oriented, output-oriented. So it was a simple question. Basically, suppose when people know, they have enough facts also, model answer, etc., isn't it? Comment? Yes. No need to write negative. It creates positive impact. Yes, it creates positive impact. Now, if you want to write the other side, you can say, however, even if it creates positive impact, but we have to focus more on its effectiveness. Right. Effectiveness and actionable accountability. Right. We tell actionable accountability, so you'll know all these things. See, fifth A question, it is array of role and functions. New functions, array of new functions are related to change-oriented, goal-oriented, action-oriented. You can talk RIGS model, development of administration, administration of development. So administration gets multiple role in terms of temporal dimension, spatial dimension, and ecological dimension. That is how you can write as many characteristics as the space allows. So that is about answer, simple question you have to write. So you can write about development administration, write its emergence, write its characteristics, then you say how it brings change in the role of administration Traditional role of administration was to maintain stability and order. Development administration is supposed to bring administration of development and development of administration. It is about social engineering. And then you can write one or two thinkers' characteristics of development administration, what development administration is. And that is how you should conclude. Then 5B question. Policy evaluation and governance. Sound governance, public governance. How there is a link? This is what you have to do. So, policy evaluation contributes fundamentally to sound public governance. Simply you can write first on, start with public policy. Public policy is characterized by policy making, implementation, monitoring and evaluation. This way. Then public policy then it should aims at enhancing policy effectiveness, especially implementation. That then you can say that ki policy assessment and sound public governance, they can have very strong link, because policy evaluation will result into knowing the flaws of not only policy but also administration. When there is a policy evaluation, let's say policy evaluation of Manrega. So when policy Manrega is evaluated, so it is not Manrega which is only evaluated. We also evaluate whether the administration is also having any problem. Right. This. And accordingly administrative reforms are brought. The policy will also be changed, but administration will also be changed. Like you can understand development administration. What development administration did? Not only change in policy formulation but also administrative capacity building. It is development of administration and administration of development also. Right. Therefore, if there is an effective policy evaluation, so that will also enhance governance. Right. Governance. There is a link, reciprocal relation between them. And we can give example also. Regulatory impact assessment has not taken place. There is regulation, but there is lack of evaluation. And when there is lack of evaluation, so regulation also suffers. That's why the Damodharan committee recommends there should be regulatory impact assessment. Basically, this question is demanding to link by some good examples. The both terms, that is what we have to write. This, then it is saying discuss. Discuss means towards end we have to write a bit of criticism also. You have to write yes, policy evaluation can be one such basis for sound governance. There are other determinant factors which also contribute to sound governance, including the ecology of administration. This, and that way you should conclude. Five C question. You write introduction, CPA experience different approaches in its comparative studies. That is introduction. Then you write the different approaches of CPA. No, the bureaucratic model, general system model, structural functional approach, input-output model, middle range theory approach, and development administration approach. So you know lots of approaches. Thereafter you start the question. Right. Whether Max Weber bureaucracy works as heuristic. They have used the term, see, great heuristic purpose. Heuristic relevance. So yes, because Max Weber model became the most dominant comparative model in CPA. Right. This bureaucratic approach was most dominant. Why? Because it is easy to compare structure and behavior, bureaucratic structure and behavior, and give some of the studies. Ralph Brabante, Monroe, Berger, their studies, they studied, that can be given. And yes, accept that yes, it has heuristic relevance. This field of company, do you agree with the statement? Yes, don't write yes, but this is how you have to let's tell that. Since it became a dominant approach in comparative public administration because of its characteristics and its appeal factor. Right. Ideal aspect is a heuristic aspect. Even Max Weber also told that the relevance of bureaucracy lies in its heuristic aspect. So, since diffracted society was considered as an ideal society, and then all other society not conforming to diffracted society as prismatic society. And even Riggs also says his ideal models have heuristic relevance. Right. So yes, it can be agreed that his model was dominant and heuristic relevance it has. No need to go in negative, that is how it should be written. Fifth D question. कुछ भी लिख सकते हैं आंसर. अभी तक तो we were writing line and length was maintained. Now, this is what basically in paper, section B, UPSC has learned a habit to ask vague questions. Now, अभी से ये पता चलता है ना कि कुछ भी question बन सकता है. Anyhow, let's take standards. I guess it is not a typing error, so I go by question. Standards are the foundation which do not replace regulation but complement them. What can be those standards? Right.
Standards are the public service motive or the legality that is involved when we do regulation. So that cannot be compromised.
No.
Standards are informal rules which are set up by within the organization to perform its objectives, whereas regulations are like something which is binding.
Standards are the ideal conditions achieved by the previous history.
See, standards, what question is saying, try to see. No? Standards are foundation which do not replace regulation, right? Rather complement. Then they say comment. It means that standards are one thing, regulation is another thing. This we have to understand. So what are those standards? Basically we have to identify. Right? And then we have to see how they are complementing. So standards can be, let's say that organizational standard. Right? Let's say that ideals. Any state has its own ideals. Let's say Indian state, it has its own ideal. The ideal standards of the state, ideal standards of the government. The government has set a standard, minimum government and maximum governance. So it is one standard for governance. And now it cannot be considered as end in itself. Right. We have to have regulation to achieve. But when you, let's say, set standards, the standards themselves influence behavior. Standards themselves influence behavior. Means you do not need necessarily take any regulatory step. Standards, let's say the way government has set some regulatory standards. So yeah, it has set some objective standards. It can be minimum government, maximum governance. It can be ease of living. Right. This aspect. Then government has taken some regulatory steps. It has brought changes in regulation. It has brought IBC. It has brought GST. It has taken other steps. It has minimized laws and rules. Now its ease of doing business has improved. This. So we have to separate two things. One, that as a standard. There are different standards, let's say. We can have service standard, we have management standards, we have product standards. Let's say we have ISI standard, ISI mark you have, ISO certification you have. Then similarly, Sevottam you have, that standard also we can talk. So when we say such standards, so standards, they are not themselves regulatory in nature. They influence the behavior, but at the same time we need still regulation and regulatory institutions. And they can be considered as complementing, means having a complement relation. That is what we have to write. So vague question, vague answer. 5A. Yes, that can be also. Okay, standards may not be because they are ideal standards, so they may not be enforced, but yes, regulatory standards which are objective standards, that can be enforced. Yes, elaborate. Outcome busting, it is another simple question if you know. So those who know, I know that most of the people, they know what is. In fact, we have asked in our mock test outcome busting, and it is taught also. Yes, no, that is not a standard. It can be, someone is talking, doctor and patient ratio. Yes, can be written anything, not a problem. Right. See, those who know, I don't need to discuss, it is a simple question. Those who do not know, they will be taught this way. Basically, outcome by the name itself. No? Outcome busting was brought in India in 2005 and 6. And there is already performance and output and outcome busting during 1990s internationally. Right. There was performance busting which came in 50s. Then input-output entrepreneurial busting which came in 90s. After Ronald Reagan time, it has also been asked. Right. Now they have asked outcome busting which has been introduced in India in 2005 and 6. Right. And then 2007 and 8, outcome busting has been merged with performance busting. Since 2017-18 when this present government came to power, so then it has been preparing a budget into 3 categories: outlay, output and outcome. This. So outlay is related to budgetary allocation, output is related to performance of that allocation, outcome is related to impact created. Over 68 ministry departments have introduced this, and outcome evaluation is done by Niti Aayog. Now after writing such basics, you can write how it overcomes weakness of output busting, performance busting. Because performance busting is output oriented. It is quantitative. Like example, let's see Manrega. So Manrega, let's see how many people got job, how much money was sanctioned and how much money was spent. Suppose money was sanctioned 1,10,000 crore and we have exactly used 1,10,000 crore, or we let's say spent 1,20,000 crore. So this is the output. Then suppose that 1,00,000 people got job. So that is the output. But then it does not tell the effects on the life of people. How their life has undergone changes. Those who got job, whether it has resulted in inclusive development, whether it has resulted into social economics, livelihood security it has given, whether it has empowered them, whether there is a change in their family, their children they are sending to school. So these are considered as outcome orientation. And since today, let's say that in present time there is greater emphasis on not knowing only about output but also about outcome. Ease of living. Ease of living is a qualitative objective. Hence we need to know also outcome. And that's why this busting. So when there is a busting, outcome busting, there will be also outcome auditing, and then we will have also outcome evaluation. So that way you have to write. So that way it is considered as simple question to write. Let's write.
Can we say that they have the same relationship like effectiveness and efficiency?
Yes. Yes, it is. 6 a question. So already we have told it. You talk about rigs. No. So you should talk about rigs model, ecology of administration. Then how rigs talk about change. And in change he talks about differentiation, integration equals to diffraction, that is development. Now he has applied this model in terms of change, and he identified two types of change, endogenous, exogenous. So in endogenous change comes from within people. Then there will be differentiation and integration, so it will result into diffraction. Now here change come from without. So when change come from without, then there can be differentiation but not integration. Or there will be institutionalized change. So when there is institutionalized change, like most of the developing countries, they have institutionalized change. They underwent democratization, then they adopted constitution. We adopted constitution to democratize this. Hence, there will be greater prismatic nature, prismatic society. This way we can say. That is what question is asking. So, examine part it is. So, once you are done with this, then comes examine part. What should be in examine part? So it is, let's say that, it is difficult to ensure that developing countries will have endogenous change. Means basically you have to criticize his concept. Right. The concept that this way what he is depicting is that diffracted societies are better than prismatic society. And when developing countries will have exogenous change, so they will always remain prismatic. Right. But prismatic is also nature found in diffracted society. Right. That's why he was criticized. That given a diffracted society also has prismatic nature. So then the hypothesis that if a society which has endogenous change, that is a Western society, will not be prismatic but it also has prismatic characteristics. And then a country, let's say developing countries which have exogenous change, they have prismatic but they also have diffracted characteristic. Like say UPSC, we have told that some of the institutions balance polity, culture, neutral bureaucracy that we have. Right. Therefore, his model may not give broader view about change, or it may not be able to explain why a prismatic society also has characteristics of balance, polity. At the same time, we cannot depict all developing countries in the same state of change. The way he considers, so we cannot consider in the same state of change. Different developing countries, we compared also, let's say Pakistan, India and Philippines. So they have different nature of bureaucracy and political relationship. So that can be written a bit. However, in broad sense, in a generic sense, it is considered that a society should have endogenous change, which brings everlasting change, and exogenous change, which brings less effective change. You should agree in generic sense towards end. That is what it should be written. Then environment situation, human resource development, environment situation. First you write about human resource development, introduction, then how environment situation influence. Environment situation influence in case of Skill India. I will just write Skill India mission government has taken steps. since it says the question command is again examine, so this is how we will say is examine. So human resource development is not only driven by situation. Can we say? We need also stability, order, right, bureaucratic attitude, or 4 is, what 4 is are equity, this will be the overall aspect of answering the question. Okay. So everything is not change oriented, otherwise it will become very ad hoc. This, yes, human resource development should address also the present needs, and present needs are largely based on ICT skill we need. We need ICT skill, we need soft skill, but hard skill also needed. Can I say that hard skill we do not need? We need hard skill, we need soft skills. So human resource should focus on both. Right. Hence, situation certainly drives human resource development. That's why Skill India has been initiated. Skill India is to bring multi-dimensional skill, including computer skill, digital skill to our human resource. At the same time, let's say Mission Karmyogi is also focusing on holistic aspect because it is demand. We need to enhance the administrative capacity, but it will not be purely on the basis of situation because we also need to inculcate hard skills. And that is how we should, let's conclude on this aspect. I am just speeding up. So, otherwise it will take more time. Rest you read from details from model answer. So, write on Lindblom why he rejects rational model. Why he rejects rational model. Then write his incremental and characteristics. No. So signs of muddling through disjointed incrementalism, that should be written. So why he rejected? Because it is very difficult to achieve complete rationality. The complete rationality is not possible. That is why he talks about incremental, because it gives descriptive analysis of policy making, and it has been found that policy making remains more incremental rather than radical. So this, after writing this, then how, let's say that it helps in policy failure, the second part. So policy failure happens due to rational model, demonetization. That is how incrementalism will never bring failure of policy, although it will also never bring best of policy. So in incrementalism, failure will not happen because incremental change. This incremental change. Largely, let's say incremental, so there is continuity. But the radical will happen like this. No link between past and future. So that is what you will find that there can be more risk, and that is how there can be policy failure. So it was this link, let's say that if you are able to establish, you will be able to write this answer. If you are not able to write this one, So the link will be missing. This. Then what can be the solutions? The solution he also told. He also moved a bit ahead of his strategic incrementalism. Right, strategic. Right. So strategic incrementalism is less incremental and not completely radical. So that will save from policy failure. Policy, since second part is also demanding to write other things, you can write big data analysis, you can write evidence-based policy making. The evidence-based policy making, big data analysis, that can work, and then strategic incrementalism, that can help in overcoming policy failure. This and these things can be considered, means there should be, let's say, balance between incrementalism and radicalism. That will, let's say, help in minimizing policy failure. Although still there should be also emphasis on rational policy making. Okay. That also you have to write towards end. Right. Why? Incrementalism after certain level does not work. And if it is wrong here, the wrong continues. The gain of rational, let's say that if you take rational decision, the gain of rational will be much more than what incremental you have. And that's why there are different models. Like we have punctuated equilibrium model. We should end with punctuated equilibrium model, which says that after certain level of incrementalism, if we should puncture it, we should bring radical change, then we should puncture it, and we should bring radical change. So that way you should conclude. Then 7A question. Washington Consensus, you write. Write a structural adjustment program. Then you write about its positive, write about negative, write East Asian crisis, write it. This. Then write about Latin American countries. Write negatives of privatization in developing countries. What are these? You know that resource? Yes. That should be rated. Latin American country, you know, Venezuela, Bolivia, Venezuela, etc. They went to socialist after going for privatization, etc. Failure of capitalism. That should be written. In developing country, East Asian crisis, 1997. So this positive you should write yourself. The positive benefits in developing countries, because more and more globalization, competitions, yes, they have benefited also. Competitiveness of their economy has increased, regulatory governance has improved, quality of product and services, they find, let's say, Bangladesh growth rate, etc. We can give some examples, including India's emerging economy and 5th largest means now. So blah blah things we have in positive side, but on negative side, these are some important things that you can write. And then it is Washington Consensus first, then Washington Consensus second, which starts 2000 onwards, that is called post-globalization era. The post-globalization phase, you write post-globalization. And post-globalization is about re-regulation and bring state back in. Right. Means not, it should not casino, let's say capitalism, right. Basically, first era was known as casino capitalism. Right. Turbo capitalism, casino capitalism. So it is not pure capitalism of Huntington. No, stampede of horde and annihilate whoever comes on the way. But it is not like, say, it is about balancing. Balancing means, let's say that protection should also be there. State should also be there. The presence of a state, strong regulation. So there should be now what we talk about, strong regulation, presence of a state. And privatization is not a solution. So privatization is not a solution for, let's say, ills of the state. Rather, state should also enhance its regulatory standards and efficiency. Like we can see what 90s, what we gave emphasis is structural adjustment program. What is the policy of the government now in 2000? Let's say that it brought its policy in 2020. 2020 related to PSUs. It has identified a strategic sector and non-strategic sector. And that is how you'll find. So during 1990s we focused purely on privatization. But now we do not go for completely privatization because we know the ills of the neoliberal philosophy. Hence there is a more balancing act or inclusive neoliberal approach. That you can end by this conclusion. Washington Consensus, you know that, isn't it? Since World Bank and IMF both have their headquarters in Washington and they advocate the neoliberal philosophy, means they have consensus among them in terms of philosophizing the same ideology. That is how we say Washington Consensus. Anyhow, the sound budgeting system, it is like same regulatory, the way we have written about regulatory aspect, same thing about budgetary system. It is budgetary system you have to write in this. Here engenders is not gender busting. Here engender means propagates. Otherwise, you know what will happen. Some people will end up writing gender busting, completely wrong. Right. Because see the other backward forward linkages. Right. Sound budgeting system. The sound budgeting system cannot be gender busting. This you have to understand. Then the last line you see this, context of budgetary governance. See what the terms they are using now. Budgetary governance, regulatory governance. These things are very, let's say, that a holistic type of terms which demand lots of understanding. Anyhow, so basically you should start with writing a budgetary system. Right? Budgetary system means first you have to write about financial administration. Financial administration focuses on how to generate finances and resource mobilization so that the government has enough for achieving its developmental needs and welfare of the people. Hence, finance is considered as oxygen of the system. This financial administration, most important tool is considered as budget. Budget has both an income side and expenditure side, and for budget there is a system developed. So there is a budgetary system. That budgetary system consists of executive, especially Ministry of Finance and other departments, then legislature which enacts the budget, then implementation of budget. Hence there is a budget cycle and budget process known as budgeting, accounting and auditing. So that is how, and it has given rise to a budgetary system. Now a sound budgetary system means all the three processes should be very objective so that there is no fiscal profligacy. So there is a fiscal consolidation, there is fiscal prudence rather than fiscal profligacy. Means government has, even if limited resource, but it is able to utilize it optimally. and rationally. That is called sound budgetary system. And when there is a sound budgetary system, it will build trust among people and government. Because if government is able to have better financial management, it will be able to serve to people more efficiently than when it has fiscal profligacy. Fiscal profligacy can be considered that if government needs 100 crore but it has given sanction of 120 crore, the 20 crore is wasted. And when it is not properly utilized, so then 20 crore wasted, and that 20 crore was needed by some other section of society. So if a country has sound budgetary system, means even if it has limited resources, but it will be able to optimally allocate to all the stakeholders, especially the needy section of society. That we have to write, and that ultimately gives rise to a budgetary governance. This is how it should be written. Read model answer. Yes. Yes. Can we link? Freebies, yes, it's a good reminder, right? So you can link, let's say that what are aspects of lack of sound budgetary management system. So yes, you know, those who have been taught, they know that. Those who are not, they will know. So one, let's say nowadays freebies going, so that we can give. Poor budgeting, budget estimates, you know that. Budget estimates agar sahi nahi hoga, so you know what will happen. Right, you can think about your family now. If all family members start demanding more than what they need, what will happen to parents' income? Right. That is how the country, right. So the same way it is the country. The country has limited resource. It is always going to have limited resource. And if budgetary system should be there where you allocate, you spend, you audit to know what happened. If the cycle is sound, so then you can have better financial system. That is how. The freebies you can say, poor budget estimates you can say, budget not debated and discussed, guillotine, etc. that you can say. So some of the facts you can write about the negative practices. Plus profligacy, you know, populist budgeting, you know that. The populist budgeting and others. So those things can be mentioned. Good practices, you can say FRBM Act, that can be a good practice. Expenditure management, FRBM Act, types of budgeting, performance budgeting, outcome budgeting. So the positive sides you can write. So this way you can link. The content details I am not trying to tell, read the model answer. So let's take next. Seven C question. So first you should write on training. This introduced by training. Training is an important personal process which tries to enhance outlook, efficiency, motivation, morale of civil servants. There are various training techniques which are practiced. Write some techniques of training and then write about some countries. There is systematic training, it is a paper one, so you have to write about paper one type. So then write about countries, how training is given, significance, France, UK, India, right? Country which have positions, they do not give emphasis much on training because they already have experience personnel, like say US. That then thereafter you link that training has been given. Still training is given for human resource development because training as a personal process plays important role in human resource development. Hence it is given emphasis or significance in personal administration. However, since training is focused on enhancing performance, but merely training cannot enhance performance. Why merely training cannot enhance performance? Training and performance, it can enhance, but that is the workplace. So as we have told that, so you are efficient and you are posted here and you are not allowed to work. Trained incapacity, yes, good example. So you find that how there is trained incapacity or you are not allowed to work. Even if you are efficient but you are not allowed to work. Your performance is properly not evaluated. Even you are efficient but you are not promoted. Even if you are efficient but there is interference, you lack autonomy. Autonomy is not given. Lack of efficient objective performance appraisal. Promotion is not based on objective criteria. Frequent posting and transfers. So these things will result into trained incapacity. Means even if you are trained but still you have incapacity, you are not able to perform. Hence, training will benefit if we address this problem also. Therefore, both should be linked. That is how question is demanding. And that is how it should write. Like towards end, let's say Mission Karma Yogi has been brought. So when Mission Karma Yogi has been brought, at the same time concomitant reforms should come within work culture. Work culture of the organization, performance appraisal should be more transparent as it has been criticized, and bureaucracy should get autonomy at work. So that is how I should link it. Critically analyze means not criticize. Critically analyze means to prove this with some critical facts, which we have not told, because already you know. Already you know trained incapacity 1. Second, let's say training. So what they have said, 75% they learn more from job rather than from training. First, third, frequent posting and transfers. Right. Means problem is not that civil servants do not have capacity to deliver. The problem is that their capacity is not utilized because of ecological factors. So the focus should also be to bring change in ecology, right, rather than only changing within civil servant. That is critical. Critical analyze means in-depth analysis with critical facts. No, it is not negation. What the statement is, the same statement we have to explain in depth with some critical facts. Right. Means we have to prove it that yes, how let's say that training will not benefit unless we link with or bring change with this aspect. So let's take last one. Audit. That is how the basic aspect of the question. Right. So, question is audit. You should start since you write about audit. Exactly, we have asked the same way. The question will tell that the same model answer, same it has provided in model answer this way. So, audit is about means audit is to hear and scrutinize. This is how you should know that. Simple, you can say that auditing, those who will write in financial administration should write, auditing is one such financial administration process. The other two processes are budgeting and accounting. This way circle be so. Right. Then you should write about audit. Audit is considered as post-budget review, and it is essential to know the outcome and output of the budgetary allocations in financial management, for which a country has or any country has a very democratic system led by CAG, which carries audit of the accounts of the government. Right. So any country will have a CAG, and that is considered a statutory audit. This is how, what people did, I will tell you that, what they wrote in the answer. Audit, they started writing on CAG. There is a difference between an answer on audit and answer on CAG. This. So your topic also has in financial administration audit and accounts. And CAG wala topic paper second mein. Right. This minor difference. That's why I told you that it is not that whether question is simple and what you write. Ultimately, it matters what you write, rather than what you, let's say that think that yes, question is simple. That is how you have to write it. Then less focus should be given on social audit. It should not be given focus. Just simply that external audit is also social audit, which is emerging, and there is a hand-holding approach between both. That's all. Then you have to come on internal audit, since question is on internal audit. So, see, audit happens two types. One, CAG does it, external institution. Before CAG audits, departments also audit themselves. Okay. They first ensure by their own audit that whether there are any, as let's say that flaws, etc., so that we can avoid any CAG remark. Okay. Therefore, each and every department does internal audit, and internal audit supervision is done by Controller General of Account. So, he is responsible for overall maintenance of accounts of the Government of India, which position was created in 1976. Or any country, let's say that may have its own accounting department headed by one accounting functionary. This, and that is how it should be written. But as of now, what happens, problem is that it is internal audit. The same department is responsible for maintaining account, and the same department is also responsible for audit. So the rationale which was applied in 1976, that till 1976 accounts and audit both were done by CAG. But ARC first recommended to separate account from audit, because there will be conflict of interest. The same institution cannot maintain account and do auditing. Therefore, ARC second now recommends in its financial management report that we need to go for next level of reform in financial management system. That here itself also we should avoid any such conflict of interest, and audit, internal audit should also be separated, and there should be a separate functionary for internal audit. It should not be under Controller General of Accounts. So maybe you will have another Controller General of Internal Audit. That is what you have to write. So this question is very objective, I will say that. Another question after Chester Barnard, right, which is very objective, and some people can exactly write the way what we are saying. That is how they should have gone for question 8. And that is what we have to write on this. Further, discuss the significance. The significance will be that it will further enhance financial management practices and expenditure management. There will be greater scrutiny of internal auditing system. It will infuse greater financial prudence or fiscal prudence. These are some terms you should know, learn and write. Let's write next. Since it is discussed, so yes, merely bringing change internal audit may not address. We have to also enhance accounting standards. We should also bring change in accounting standards, and India should move from accrual cash accounting to accrual accounting. And that should be your conclusion when we write towards the end. Then civil service regime, public sector, corruption and ethics code. इन्होंने क्या किया है कि एक कोई रिसर्च पेपर है, they have asked from that exactly the statement. Fortunately वो मुझे मिल गया. So that is what they do. Also we also do the same thing, right? That's why at times there is coincidence. Right. Okay. Once we asked a question from ARC second related to JNN URM, a quotation was there in ARC second. Exactly same quotation they also asked. This. Anyhow, basically you have to write introduced with ethics in governance, ethics in administration. And use the term public sector ethics so that it seems you are answering the question. They have used the term, there is no any difference. Public sector ethics and ethics in administration. It's the same. Then you write some facts, etc., ethics in administration, etc., how it is started. Basically, code of ethics. Since we are writing in public administration, so we can write like this. To give it personal paper 1 characteristics, and then India. Thereafter you write conduct rules. This. Then you say here that largely it has been linked to corruption. How it has been linked to corruption? Corruption means destruction of ethics. Ethics means destruction of corruption. Right. So this is how, when ethics is destroyed, it results into corruption. Right. So ethics has been given emphasis largely in the context of increase in corruption. How you will say? तो ये आपको थोड़ा facts पता होना चाहिए. तो corruption. So that is how Santanam Committee. Right. So it found that there was increase in corruption. So what it recommended? There should be code of conduct. Conduct rules were adopted. After Santanam Committee recommendation, that is conduct rules were adopted. Civil Services Conduct Rule 64, Central Services Conduct Rule 64, All India Services Conduct Rules 1968, 88. So that is how you will find that it has been linked. So corruption and ethics have been linked. That's why code of conduct is adopted in which it is barred. What code of conduct say? What you should not do. The civil servant should not do means should not indulge in politics. It should not take gift. It should not have conflict of interest. So basically, it's all those conduct which result into corrupt behavior. A code of conduct tries to mention the list of that. What a civil servant should not do, and if a civil servant should not do that, then there will be no corruption. And that is how conduct rules have been prepared. So largely they are the don't list. Although they have also do list, but since we do not have separate code of conduct and code of ethics. So they have focused on corruption. However, then you have to counter it, that conduct rules or code of conduct or code of ethics should not merely aiming at corruption. Rather, it should aim at how to bring change in behavior. If you bring change in behavior, there will be change in corruption incidents. But if you focus only on corruption by barring what you should not do, but you remain the same. The attitude, thinking, values of the civil servant remain the same. What has been done is that we have brought a set of rules or set of standards just to say that you should not do that. So there should be more focus on bringing change in their behavior. That is called character building, attitudinal and behavioral changes. That aspect, plus the way we were talking about training and work culture related. Similarly, there is a relationship between code of conduct and other anti-corruption steps related. Like say ki code of conduct you bring and you find someone corrupt, but investigating agency does not investigate. Or someone is honest and investigating agency proves him. That type of relation you have to write. So basically you have to write towards end that it is not only its code of conduct, rather we should also have other anti-corruption institutions, regulations, let's say in India case Lokpal. So we should also have a very efficient Lokpal. We should have very independent professional CBI. That will also imbibe confidence in the civil servants to adhere integrity. Many a time it is anti-corruption institutions that can bring, let's say, that change in behavior, because you can have confidence that if you are having integrity, it will be protected rather than being harassed. So that step should be also taken. At the same time, the conduct should also be changed. The code of conduct or code of ethics should also be changed. It should not be merely don't list, do list. Rather, it should be a detailed list, situational behavior. It should also depict past behaviors of the civil servants. In this particular situation, how a civil servant acted, how a civil servant should act in a particular situation. You should also derive inferences. There should be also case studies, means empirical findings related to the civil servants, not only related to India but also other countries ki how civil servants face. So a conduct rule should become a guide rather than merely do's and don't list. This, and that is how we should bring change, and that is how towards end you should write on this. That is how that paper also talks about, and it was also one expected question about how conduct rules should have detailed guides rather than just merely do's and don'ts aspect. That is how I should write it. Then let's call, that's why it is insufficient. You have to prove that it is insufficient. In answer, you should not indulge in difference between code of ethics and code of conduct, because then it will result into diversion. Rather, you treat them interchangeably. Yes. Yes, where you can write, when you write anti-corruption institution, S.C. Gupta case, you can write the details, see in the model answer when it is prepared, but I am just trying to ignore all those things. But you can see how it is S.C. Gupta case. He is an honest person, but then you know what has happened. And all serving and retired civil servants are supporting him. He is an honest civil servant, but ultimately he has been proved as dishonest. That same happened with P.C. Parakh, but he was somehow acquitted. P.C. Parakh is another, let's say, that renowned and honest civil servant. Same in coal block allocation, he was also initially, he felt shocked. Right. So yes, that case also can be given, right. Then failure of policies. So you should write, again in any introduction, policy cycle you write, then write policy making, policy implementation, show reciprocal relationship. They have reciprocal relationship. Repeated question, it is a repeat question also, you know that, already in past they have asked. So you write this reciprocal relationship, this. After writing reciprocal relationship, then you write on policy implementation side. When policy implementation, so those who implement policy, they criticize policy. ये दिल्ली में बैठ के लोग उनको कुछ समझ में आता नहीं है, isn't it? So they do not know ground realities. एक बार यहाँ आके देखे फिर पता चलेगा. Right, ivory tower image. So you can use that staff and line conflict also. Right, staff and line, staff has ivory tower image. This will be ideal. Field has real situation. So that is how you can find that they criticize. Now policy makers, they criticize those who implement. Right. Because they think that the policy is right, appropriate, problem lies at implementation level, that they are not, let's say, proactive, or let's say that they are not able to implement properly. There can be nexus, corruption, other such factors. This Policy design. So policy design can have its flaws. Then you have to write that ki, however, now society or any state or the field of public policy has experienced flaws of both or strength and weaknesses of both. There was a time when we did not know the strength and weaknesses of both. Rather, we policy making field emerged with the view that policies should be formulated, better policies should be formulated. But later on we came to know that policy implementation has also a problem. Problem also lies at implementation level. Hence today we know that problem can be at policy design level also and problem policy implementation level. If policy has a policy design problem, its effectiveness will suffer. And even if it is a sound policy not properly implemented, so that will also result into policy failure. So this was implementation. Let's say that demonetization as a policy, it can be considered as a failure. Right. GST has a GST is a complex law. So when GST is a complex law, it is affecting its implementation. This IBC is improved law. It is resulting into better performance. So you have to have some good examples to show it, how there can be problems. Similarly, let's say Manrega, we generally give one empirical based fact, Manrega and Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana. Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana has a very sound policy design. Hence, its effectiveness is better than Manrega. Manrega does not have a sound policy design. What is sound policy design? Work quality is not defined. Work repair quality is not defined. Social audit is done by Gram Sabha, which also implements Manrega. So there is no independent audit. But in case of Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana, quality of road is determined. Repair is also determined, when repair will happen. So quality of work is defined and it is done, let's say that when the road is constructed, you have to you have to make a video of that road, video geotagging you have to do. Then it is IIT Delhi which audits. It is an independent agency. Right. So Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana has better policy design. Because of that, it has better policy effectiveness. That is how. That's why you have to talk. That's why there are models at policy making level also and policy implementation level also. Policy making models are incremental model, rational model. Policy implementation model are, this is called top-down model, Pressman and Wildwasky model, you will know. And then it is called street level bureaucracy model, bottom-up model, Elmore and Lipsky, let's say that they are some thinkers. So you read from model answer, there are both, let's say policy making also, policy implementation also. And today emphasis is given at both level, policy making also and implementation also. Because they have reciprocal relationship and that is how you have to handle it. Complementarity, here it is policy related. So rather we should write top-down model of Pressman, Wildwasky Pressman and street level bureaucracy of Elmore and Lipsky, let's say. So their model will write rather than complementarity, because complementarity is only about politics administration relationship. Here it is about policy making and policy implementation, and that is also about effectiveness. That's why that we will not mention. So this is what the discussion, right?
The first step towards achieving your dreams is having the right coach. Get the best education with Lukmaan IAS and make your UPSC dreams come true. Download the app now.